just to go through sort of a little roadmap of what I intend to cover today, and hopefully not a huge long period of time, and leave plenty of time for questions and answers if we have them, is really why this opportunity at this time is so significant, and what we're doing to be able to take advantage of it, and how this Republic campaign is so important to the expansion of our mission. And so I'm going to take a minute to introduce the team members, most of whom are on here, and tell you just a little bit about them so you can find out about the people that have come together in a really unique way to make this happen. Then talk a little bit about the, what I'll do is I'll go through the pitch deck, just so that everybody has a baseline of information to work from. Excuse me, so that we're all kind of at least on the same page to start. I'll quickly go through the pitch deck, and then we'll talk about the updates, about the things that have really changed in 2020, and even especially just here in the second quarter. And then I'll talk a little bit about how that plays out for potential new opportunities in law enforcement, potential new opportunities on the training side, potential new opportunities in retail. And I guess I shouldn't keep saying potential, because they're not. They're things that are actually starting and underway. So that's what I want to let you know about. And then we'll talk a little bit about ROI and exit strategy, and then go to the Q&A session. So I want to start off with the team. First off is Libby Brunell, the Chief Operating Officer. And I think what I want to say, actually, before I say that, is everybody that you're about to be introduced to, we didn't recruit anyone. Everyone came to this company. I've never really seen anything like it. If I had set out to recruit a group of people like the people that you're going to meet today, I don't think I could have done it. They just sort of naturally came to the company because they cared about its mission. Yes, I think everybody is looking at it like this could be a big thing, and it could be a powerful company that makes a lot of money, but everybody came to it because of the mission. And Libby was one of the first. As Chief Operating Officer, we met at a Hellgate Venture Networks gathering, sort of an entrepreneurial gathering, quite some time back. And then there was another one at which we actually pitched the very, very first beginnings of Reflex Protect, before it was even called Reflex Protect. And I got to talking to her, and Libby comes to us from Cascadia Business Ventures. And a lot of what they do, not everything by any stretch of the imagination, but one of the things they do well is they help companies in transition and even in turnaround. And I thought that with the new company, it might be valuable to have somebody who specializes in fixing things that have happened kind of organically over the life of a company when it gets to a turnaround stage or a transition stage, and say, hey, look, let's try to avoid some of those mistakes up front. And that's exactly what Libby has helped us do. She's good at all the things I'm not good at, and probably better at the things I am good at, and makes life really easy for us. So she's the one that kind of keeps the ball rolling. The second person I want to introduce is our Senior Marketing Director, which is Jess Adenich. Jess was one of several gifts I received from my co-founder, Steve Mangold. Steve had been spending quite a bit of time before he ever met me, going around and talking to various self-defense, non-lethal self-defense companies. And in his travels, he came to know Jess, who for 6 years was the Senior Marketing Director at Mace. Jess truly knows more about this specific industry and space than anybody else in the company. And many of the things that are happening right now are directly related to her knowledge of the company and ability to help us step up into some of those spaces. So it's great to have her on the team and her experience. Ben Gladwin was one of the first people to actually be sprayed with Presidia gel. He was captain at the University of Montana Police Department at the time, 18 years as a cop. And Ben was skeptical about what we had, but he was always in favor of more training. And so he agreed to come in and help us with the training. And at the end of it, he said to me, well, you put a lot of words in my mouth, and I kind of actually believe what you're saying, but I can't do this unless you test me with this stuff. And you can see online that it worked on him. And it was not long thereafter that he actually joined the team, retired from his career, and said, I think I can save more lives working with you than in my position with the University of Montana Police Department. And it's been great to have him on the team from the beginning. And at almost exactly the same time, the head of active training, Alan Burries, came along. Alan and Ben knew each other. They'd been part of the training cadre that had been teaching active shooter training and those types of things here in the Missoula area. Alan is a lawyer like me. He also has extensive martial arts experience and has spent a lot of his career in safety preparedness. Alan literally wrote the book Survive a Shooting, which is the Bible on the subject. And so having him come along at almost that same time and say, yep, I recognize the same thing Ben does, there's a missing piece here that's special, was great. And that was our core group for a while. We recently have added Evan Dean. Evan comes to us from a sales background, and he's heading up our retail and individual sales, working with a lot of our champions and influencers, and starting the process of getting us into stores, and just basically getting other people to help sell for us. And Evan joined us in the winter, and it's now actually summer. So he's still kind of the new guy, but not really so much anymore. And also great to have him. Sue Glader, I know from many, many years ago. Sue and I, and she's going to be happy that I acknowledge that she was a year behind me. She's younger than I am, in college at Stanford. We've known each other forever and been friends. And Sue, like me, is a writer, although she actually does it professionally. And here, just a few months ago, as we started developing more and more content, I turned to Sue and asked if she was interested in just helping me out with a couple of little projects. I just needed somebody to write things in a new and different way from me. And Sue became really fascinated with what we're doing and with the importance of our mission, and has since joined the team. And it's fantastic to have her as part of the marketing group. I don't know if Patrick Mamoli is on yet today, but Patrick is our head chemist. He's the one who invented Reflex Remove, which is turning out to be one of the most important parts of the whole Reflex Protect active defense solution. And he's a genius. It's always nice to have a genius on the team who understands all of the chemicals and materials and things that we use. He's also been instrumental in a National Science Foundation grant application that we're pursuing that we hope will allow us to make Reflex Remove even better, more effective, and usable in more places. And then I think he's on the phone, so you can't see his face, but my partner, Steve Mangold, I can't say Mangold today. Steve Mangold is out there somewhere. And Steve is the reason we're all here. He invented the Reflex technology spray head that really created the opportunity for us to create this company and set it on its journey. So those are the folks. And Steve is still doing research and development for us. He's always looking for ways to improve our technology and add new technology. And we'll talk a little bit about some of those exciting things as we come up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen now and shift over to the desktop. And okay, it looks like that's working. Is that working, everybody? Yes, it is. Okay, terrific. So let's take a minute and just go through Reflex Protect and our mission really to help people protect themselves and bring them peace of mind. Why isn't that moving? Oh, I see. I probably have to click there. There we go. So we know what the problem is. The problem is, and it's really perfectly summed up over on the left-hand side of your screen, the cost of violence-related injuries and deaths are 100 times more when a company reacts to workplace violence versus preventing it from occurring. And if the costs of violence weren't apparent to all of us before, they certainly are in these last few months. We've seen it everywhere. And it's easy to think that, you know, hey, a $20 can of Reflex Protect might very well prevent a $2,000 claim. So that's the problem that we are seeking to address. The value proposition is that we have a holistic solution. We can have an entire platform that can be a turnkey solution for workplaces, and now we're finding other places as well that are interested in it, with access to a simple, safe, and effective solution and training that goes with it, that really empowers organizations to allow their own personnel to protect themselves during the response gap, that time between the eruption of potential violence and when help can get there, whether it's in the form of security or law enforcement. And that's the key area right there. That's what almost everything we do is in that moment when violence comes up unexpectedly and you need to do something about it. And in the past, there really wasn't anything that was effective, but that also didn't have negatives. And that's what we do at Reflex Protect, and that's what our products do and our training does. So how does it do that? Well, the first is Steve's invention, the Reflex Technology Spray Head. We have a patent, 2 patents actually on it, and that makes it very easy and intuitive for the average person to use our product. It's very, very accurate, which turns out to be very, very important. It's something that anybody can just grab, thumb up the safety, and use, and people feel very comfortable with that use. Now, what we put inside it is what's important as well, and that's the Presidia gel. It's a formula that has been around for years. It's just reformulated in a new way that makes it so that it doesn't get everywhere. The real problem with pepper sprays and even gels and all those kinds of things is they have unintended consequences. You can't target them as specifically as you would like. With Presidia gel, we can target a single individual and zap that individual from a distance without anybody having to touch anybody else. And that person will be incapacitated, take a knee, and then you can escape or you can take next steps. And it won't affect anybody else in the area. And that's the real key to Presidia gel that makes it different than anything else. We also created a decontaminant, Reflex Remove, which reverses what Presidia gel does. Interestingly, it also reverses tear gas and pepper sprays, so it's particularly interesting and useful now. And we have a patent pending on this. It's a very safe product. You know, no more. It's as benign as baby shampoo, really. But it's the way Patrick put it together and developed it makes it just far better than anything else out there. So it allows us to reverse a mistake or otherwise to avoid some of the problems that could come along with other kinds of chemical agents. And then finally is the training, which can start from actually having policies and procedures in place and risk mitigation, but to our low impact, no scare tactics training that really fits the user. If you have police coming in who are not well trained in training others, they're used to training other police officers, they can do things that would have been great in the law enforcement arena, but that aren't so good here. And we found places where they were saying, you know, we're getting workplace comp claims from the training to prevent violence. And so we addressed that specifically with our training. And it's a huge opportunity now because not only can we do this in person, we've also developed it into a very powerful online system that's been really useful to us during the lockdowns for COVID, but will also make it great for distance learning and it'll make it less expensive and also a much higher profit margin in the long run for us as well. Okay, so what have we been doing as far as the sales strategy? This is, the left-hand side is kind of where we were. Our intention was really to create and dominate a market for non-professionals, right? So not for law enforcement. We were really originally focused on healthcare, then schools, then houses of worship, then businesses. It turned out that almost any place that violence could arise, could use our product. And so we created something that really no one else ever had, and have been in the process of developing a market for non-lethal self-defense that just really didn't exist before. And so at first there were a lot of direct sales from us to other businesses, B2B. We've always had a consumer facing site on our Reflex Protect website for folks that want to purchase it for home. But that was sort of the limit, and that is expanding rapidly now as we find other partners that are interested in distributing our product for us as part of the lines that they distribute, healthcare group purchasing organizations, other types of distributors, and also as we look now to the opportunity in retail that we didn't previously have. Now you see on the right-hand side of the screen, we have established Presidia gel as a substitute for pepper spray. And that was something that we thought, you know, down the line, we're going to be able to do some of these things. And one of the first things that I did last year, one of the last things I did last year was I created a deal with one of the largest distributors of gear, body armor, cameras, non-lethals in the country, named Safariland. And we made a deal to put our Reflex Technology spray heads on their Mark 9 pepper sprays for law enforcement, because law enforcement was beginning to recognize, hey, this innovative spray head, this is good. This is better than what we have for some of our uses. We'd be interested in having it. And so Safariland actually asked us if they could work with us on that. And that was going to be our kind of move into the law enforcement arena, was by partnering with them. And that's going well. They are also going to be creating a bear spray for us as soon as we get our EPA approvals all lined up. And that's a great relationship for us with them. But at the same time, you'll see as we get into the updates that Presidia gel and our other products are now becoming extremely interesting to the law enforcement side. We've had a grant in place with the United States Air Force through the Small Business Innovation and Research grants, and have been working with them for some time on potential military innovations. You'll see then that we plan on expanding into bear spray and then eventually internationally. Well, the go-to-market was originally in the middle, this growth in healthcare, school, municipalities, those types of things. But what really has happened over the course of the last few months is all of those places are figuring out what they're going to do about security going forward. And so what we're really focused on is the left-hand side of the screen, which is establishing Reflex Protect and Presidia gel as the new lowest level controlling force option for law enforcement. And we're going to talk more about that, but that is an incredible opportunity for us to get far more engaged with law enforcement than we had originally expected at far earlier, and it's a really exciting opportunity. And then we'll also be expanding into the other markets and continuing our focus on Reflex Remove as a standalone product that works on any kind of chemical agent. So let's talk a little bit about the competitive market out there, because it's significant that we came along at this time. There's a real need, an evident need now for a rethinking of use of force. Law enforcement is calling for it itself. Certainly, there have been demonstrators calling for it, and there have been politicians calling for it. And the truth is that not only had the non-lethal companies not provided something for the rest of us, for the non-professionals that could be used in schools or hospitals over the years, they also really hadn't changed what they'd offered to law enforcement. And so you sort of had, you had lethal force, you had verbal de-escalation, and those were the two ends of the spectrum. And in the middle, like way up at the top, was Taser, which had its own, was really just for law enforcement, not useful for others, and has its own limitations. And then you had various pepper sprays and hands-on actual contact, whether it's with a baton or tackling somebody. And all of those products had significant problems in terms of affecting innocent bystanders, third parties. They weren't something that police felt fully comfortable being able to rely on. At least that's the feedback we got. And so what we've seen is that even though the law enforcement was tending to respond to other people like nurses or teachers showing them our product and saying, hey, do you think this is a good thing for our hospital? Once they started to really look at it, they said, this is just a good thing. This is just more innovative technology than we've ever seen before. Yes, it's great. I think that's a terrific thing for you to have in your hospital or your school, but I kind of want to have this as well. And that's been the big change that we've been seeing recently. I just kind of talked you through management, so we'll skip through those. And then use of funds, you know, the status accomplishments, yes, we are now best practices in safety, anti-violence safety preparedness in healthcare. The same is becoming true as a solution to the arm the teachers debate in schools. And we are seeing increased use in law enforcement. And so we really have had, you know, our first year was creating a minimum viable product. Our second year was getting it introduced into a couple of places like healthcare. And now we're really seeing it become best practices in anti-violence safety preparedness across the board. 5-year projections, these are going to change. A lot of them are going to be similar, but some of them are going to be much larger due to the information that I'm going to share with you here in a minute. So that gives everybody sort of the same basic background. And now I'm going to turn my attention a little bit to what's happening lately. Excuse me, I get a drink. So as we all know, life changed in 2020. For us, it changed actually at the beginning. I mentioned the Safariland deal where we put our Reflex technology spray heads on their Mark 9s. Well, they invited us to SHOT Show, which is the largest gathering for shooting, hunting, and outdoor trades in the world in Vegas. And it was massive. I mean, it was just so large. And Safariland had a huge booth, and they brought us along to talk about our product and how it was interacting with their products, but also just to talk about our product with various people. And while we were there, we learned a couple of things. One of which was that I actually met a fellow that I'm going to talk about quite a bit now called Matt Schaefer. Matt runs tactical defense training, and he met with Alan and me at SHOT Show to talk about what was going on in the non-lethal world. And part of what was going on was that Mace had changed its focus from some of the things they had done in the past to really more of a retail focus. And groups like Matt's, organizations like his that do training for law enforcement and the military, were finding themselves without a sponsor anymore. And so he got to talking to us about our product and said he wanted to look at it and test it, but he thought, you know, maybe there's a place for you guys to fill in here and there. And we thought that'd be cool. We'd be really interested in talking to you. And then the other thing we heard about was coronavirus. And I think Alan and I both feel pretty fortunate that we made it home without catching the virus, because it wasn't long after that the whole world knew more about COVID-19. And when we all went into lockdown, it became evident that everything was going to change. And when I first started talking here on Republic way back on St. Patrick's Day, we were just going into that lockdown, and little did we know how much things were going to change, that we were going to need to wait on healthcare and schools and some other institutions to figure out their safety preparedness for a while, because they had bigger fish to fry and much more immediately, and rightly so. But what also happened was that there came from Matt's end a real interest in the people that he showed it to, who said what I just told you a minute ago, like, wait a minute, this is truly different. I've never had something like this before. I think I'd like to have this on my belt. And he ran a few training sessions and had tremendous feedback. He said to me again today, that, in all of his years training cops, he said, you'll never get anybody to agree. There's always going to be a curmudgeon. There's always going to be something, oh, I don't like that. I don't know. And that's true in most places. I don't think it's unique to law enforcement. But he said, this has been weird. He said, literally no one that he's talked to yet, and he's talked to hundreds of members of law enforcement, have said anything other than like, this is new. This is different. This is great. I want this on my belt. Why don't I have this already? And so that happened just as we needed to be focusing our efforts into a new area, and just as we were also coming out with the Pocket Presidia gel. And the Pocket Presidia gel is handy for a couple of reasons. First is it's meant for folks at home. It's meant for folks on the go. It's easy to use. It does all of the great things that our stationary kits do in institutions like a school or a hospital or a church, but you can carry it out while you're jogging. And so we had been looking to get into the individual space, and that was certainly one of the things we wanted to focus on as we all went into lockdown. And we've seen a good deal of increased success there. We're having a lot more Amazon sales than we ever did, and the like. But it also turns out that that same size fits exactly into the same holster that law enforcement across the country has been using for pepper spray for years. And it actually just serves as a substitute for pepper spray. So Matt was beginning to get some departments in the Ohio area kind of signed up and interested. And then June came along, and we began to see the demonstrations in the streets. We began to see a great increase in violence all the way around. Issues relating to use of force came about, and suddenly the opportunity to be of service to everyone involved in the debate became evident, because everyone would like to see a better tool in the hands of law enforcement that enables an easier set of circumstances in which to avoid unnecessary violence. And that's really when the whole mission of the company began to change. That originally, yes, we were a product company. We made this cool product, and then it became, well, we're more than that. We're actually a safety preparedness company. We train people. We're really involved in all of their anti-violence needs, and we want to be known for that. But then it was sort of like, that's not even all that we do. What we really want to do, and Reflex Remove is also a big part of it, is we want to try to alleviate unnecessary suffering due to violence for everyone everywhere. And it's a huge task. It seems like, why would you make a mission that big? But we think we can help. We think we can help. And we think we can help with not just our products, but our training elements, and also just the times. The times are right for a rethinking of how we are able to protect ourselves and how we are able to protect our loved ones, and being able to reach out from a distance and exercise controlling force over someone that wants to hurt you or your loved ones before they can do so, without having to touch them, without having to hurt them, and have them take a knee, and then to be able, once that threat has subsided, to alleviate unnecessary suffering even from there, or to the extent that there's unnecessary suffering that comes about because of other uses of tear gas or pepper spray, to have Reflex Remove available to do that. That was a whole new thing. That was a new opportunity. And while we are in no way changing our origins, while we are in no way walking away from the institutions and the non-professionals that we want to provide this type of support to, we are also adding to that the ability to give law enforcement new and better tools than they've had in the past to do their job as well. And so we're announcing, really today, Reflex Protect Tactical, which will be an addition to and completely in line with our alleviation of unnecessary suffering messaging and mission. But it will also enable us to enter a market that originally we had not thought we would go into sooner rather than later, because it was so well served, seemingly, by so many others. But there was a gap, and what we have done from the beginning is fill gaps. There was a gap in even what law enforcement had, and the feedback we have been receiving is astonishing. And we believe that the ability to provide better tools to everyone and better training to everyone in how best to protect themselves or how best to exercise controlling force over potential violence when needed, that is a unique opportunity and it's a timely one, and that we are uniquely well suited to do it. So what part of that is we have entered into a strategic alliance with Tactical Defense Training. There are other training organizations that we'll be working with, but they are going to be going out there and training, in many cases for free, new departments across the country. We're pretty well established in Ohio, getting started there, but we'll be doing this across the country, and providing new training to law enforcement to let them know that there's a new tool that they can use that will allow them to do their jobs more safely and better, and hopefully in a way that suits the public at large as well. So that is a big part of what's happening. Another big part of what's happening is coming out of this campaign itself, which is we're really beginning to get affiliates and champions out there online who are beginning to make connections for us, make sales for us, and make introductions. And that's a lot of what I'm going to talk about in terms of what we're doing with this campaign and what we hope that our investors will be able to do with us. We also still do have product expansion plans. We're going to continue, Steve's working all the time, continue making better and more products that continue to address these specific areas and that are of use to folks, because obviously we have good intellectual property and we are first in the marketplace right now for a lot of these things. But in order to maintain that, we have to stay ahead. And that's a lot of what this raise is about, is enabling continued R&D and continued expansion of our brand into these spaces in ways that really take advantage of that first mover activity. So that's a little bit about where we're going in the use of funds. What I want to talk about now really for all of you as Republic investors is why this campaign is so important to us. We are on a perfectly good trajectory to kind of move along at a nice pace, and certainly, you know, when hospitals and schools come back online, and they will, there's a lot more attention being paid to what we do. We could go, you know, along just fine and do very, very well. But with the opportunity we have now to use the people who are involved in the Republic campaign, to have them participating and energized to participate in reaching out to their schools and hospitals and local law enforcement, as well as the capital to actually then look at pursuing more capital. That's really what this has a great opportunity to do. If we're successful in this round, the company's going to be fine. But if we're successful in this round, we also may be in a position to really put the gas down. And that's kind of what brings us to the potential exit strategy situation. So this is where I have fun, right? Because I'm a lawyer. This is a lot of what I've done in my career, is really help build companies for an exit. Some of the companies I helped build were cash cows that, you know, families just made their livings off of for years. But most of them were built to be sold to a competitor or a larger company or in some other way. So let's go through what that looks like for us. One of the obvious things that I did early on by setting up the relationship with Safariland was to create an opportunity for us to develop a whole new area of non-professionals, civilians we call them, the hospitals, the schools, the people that were not served before, and then have that be something that would fit into a larger company and would be an obvious exit strategy in an acquisition situation. And that's certainly still in play. There have been companies that I've seen, and actually what's good about that is it relates to risk. Because we are now looking at a different risk profile for this company than your typical startup. You know, when people first got involved in this, all of those risk factors that you read in the Republic page or on any of our offering documents, and they're all true. No one should invest any money in this company or in a startup that they cannot afford to lose. That's just the name of the game. You really shouldn't. But as far as pure risk, some companies are less risky than others, and certainly some become less risky over time. For example, there was a company I worked with that was called Super Dudes, and they were really cool back in the early aughts. And at the end of the day, it was a game. It was an online game and kind of a social gathering space. And it wasn't turning out to be successful, but they had developed sufficient intellectual property that we were able to sell to MySpace. Now, MySpace was just starting to get big. They never used the Super Dudes brand or any of their intellectual property that related to the fun game that everybody played and that allowed these crazy people to go act like superheroes and show up at parties around the country and crash them for 4 years. But it did have sufficient value in terms of what they were doing as a social media site to allow all of the investors to get their money back and then some, and actually have six-figure paydays for the founders. Those types of situations are what we're looking at, you know, in our growth pattern now. I think we're in a place where almost regardless of what happens, there's enough of us out there. We have very little debt that we are a much lower risk proposition than we originally were. And that makes earlier acquisition opportunities certainly attractive. There's also another way of going about this, and that's that you simply grow until you're really, really, really big and somebody acquires you. And that's preferable. My most recent startup was called StudySync. And that's what happened to them. We actually grew it to the point where we thought maybe a big company like McGraw-Hill or somebody like that would buy us. It's a school product. But then they blew through it so rapidly that they've just kept in business. And so now they're looking at other opportunities for how they'll exit. And some of those types of things could be possible for us as well, which is that we could find, instead of an actual acquisition or a merger, more private equity, more additional investment coming into the company to help us grow and maybe do acquisitions horizontally, other types of trading companies, or vertically actually integrate down to can manufacturers and spray manufacturers and out to assembly and distribution. There are those types of opportunities that become very interesting to private equity. And how that's really relevant to you as Republic investors relates to one of the questions I frequently get, which is why is there no discount to invest in Reflex Protect? And the answer is because it's not a convertible note. You're really just buying a security about $3 a share. However, because we're an LLC, we were prevented from actually selling those securities because we'd wind up with 2,000 individuals on our cap table that we'd have to send K-1s to. So instead, there will be a conversion event that occurs, and it'll either be around that $3 price, or if it occurs at a lower price, you'll still get the lower price. But what that means is we as a company have to, at some point, and it could be sooner or it could be later, we have to transfer this company, convert it into a Class C, probably a Delaware Class C. That is a tremendous opportunity, not long after coming out of the Republic campaign, potentially, to bring in private equity from outside that sees the path that we're on. And to be able to use that opportunity really to build a company that's meant to grow and grow, you know, not just nationally and not just competitively nationally, but even internationally. And then the third one, of course, is there's always the IPO possibility. Now, I've never built a company that's had an IPO. I've never built one that was meant to. This one might. And that's really interesting. And it might for two different reasons. One of which is if we go along and grow substantially on our own, we might want to have a small public offering to be able to actually go out and do some of those acquisitions ourselves. Or if you did do private equity investment that grew the company very rapidly, private equity is going to want to take the company public as their way of getting their investment back. So it actually becomes a situation in which there's some very real and rather specific exit opportunities before us now, instead of just sort of like, well, yeah, we hope we'll grow large and sell. That's still, very possible, and we've done things even to line that up. But the opportunity for this to get really quite large and have a really interesting exit in the not too distant future is before us now. So that's one of the things I wanted to tell everybody is here on Republic, the fantastic thing is you're all real people. There's no gatekeeper. There's no 3 or 4 VCs that are making decisions and then come in and tell you how to do it. You're people that can reach out to your local schools. You can reach out to other investors. You can do all kinds of things that help secure your own investment and help us advance our mission. And that's really what we're asking for today, is we're asking that if you think that what we're doing is as exciting as we do, and we think there's really good reason to believe that this is far more exciting than we ever thought it was going to be, then join in and double down, share it with others, and help us achieve those goals. It's a really exciting time. I think this would be a good time. Libby, do we have any questions?
Hi all, if you do have questions, we'd love you to post them in the chat. Joe, the first question that we received, and this was received before we started the webinar, but wondering about Reflex Protect's use in different states. Can you use it in every state? And what happens if I travel in between states? What information do I need to know about the use of Reflex Protect as it pertains to travel?
Absolutely. That's a good question. And the answer is it does differ from state to state. Most states, if you're looking at the Pocket Presidia gel, most states you're going to be okay. And if you go on our website, we do have a lot of information that will show you the state regulations, where we can ship it to you, where you might have to go to a store to pick it up. But it is a good idea to actually look at those various situations. Alan, you may have some of the specifics on some states. For example, Hawaii, the island of Oahu, you pretty much can't have it at all, but you can have it at other places. Do you have a few that are specific that you might suggest in case anybody happens to be from those places? They can learn something important today. You have to push down and take yourself off mute, bro. You're still on mute. Let me see if I can. There you go.
The biggest thing you mentioned, Hawaii is probably the worst as far as because they have a 0.5 ounce limit. So if we made a 0.5 ounce size, we could enter the Hawaii market easier. California, Florida, Nevada, you want the smaller sizes. Nevada and Florida, the 1.9s, you're going to be fine. California, 2.5 or 1.9. And those are some pretty populated states that people frequent a lot. So those are 3 important ones to realize. You don't want to take the 5 ounce to those states.
Great. Great. And one other one is New York. I know it's not a specific size. It has to be pocket sized. So definitely the Pocket Presidia gel works for that. But we will let you know we can't ship it to you in New York, but we do have retail outlets there now that we can direct you to where you can go pick it up if you're a New Yorker.
Joe, a follow-up question on that is, are you doing anything, is Reflex Protect doing anything to change some of those regulations in states, seeing as the product is new and could be used more widespread?
Well, the answer to that is yes. In fact, one state in particular we were very active in, and that's Wisconsin. Wisconsin had a very strange set of well, it wasn't. It was just a weird definition. We fell into a gap, right? Because we were not a pepper spray, and pepper sprays were legal there, but they also were like, well, since you're something else, you must be a tear gas bomb, because that's what something else is. And we were, no, we're not that either. We're really something specific. So we went to the legislature, and we were actually really fascinated, because as divisive as the Wisconsin legislature is, this was something that everybody could get behind. And we actually passed legislation that made it clear that you could have Presidia gel in Wisconsin. Any adult can buy Presidia gel and Reflex Protect products in Wisconsin now. And it passed on a voice vote in both houses, essentially unanimously, and was signed by the governor the same day it passed. So it's one of those areas where we really see one of the magical things about our mission is that people from very disparate points of view, who could argue about the details of lots of different things, see this and they're like, well, that's a common sense solution to a problem that we all agree exists. And it doesn't fit into our binary thinking. And oh yeah, we can all agree on that. So that was one of the places we did that. We will undoubtedly be reaching out to other places, and that's something where people could help. You know, if you're in a jurisdiction where you're not sure or you're not happy with the laws that relate to what you're able to carry, let us know, and let's see what we can do about getting them changed or modified. Sometimes it would only take an attorney general's opinion that says, wait a minute, this is different than everything else. We're not going to have it be subject to those laws. Sometimes it might take a whole act of the legislature, but we're up for it. And so we'd love to engage everyone in the process of helping us make clear that this is something that folks almost everywhere actually want.
Thank you, Joe. The next question has to do with training. You know, many of our investors have gone on our website and they have seen the videos on using Reflex Protect, but are wondering if we offer any other types of training, not only to the individual, but perhaps to organizations.
Yes, and obviously I talked about that quite a bit. We have an entire training division now, and it started off because we knew we would need to train the healthcare workers in the use of the product in order to be able to get it through their insurance companies and things like that, to begin using an actual active defense solution in healthcare, because none was allowed. You know, you couldn't have a gun, you couldn't have a taser, you couldn't have pepper spray. So they wound up tackling people or getting beat up or both. So we knew we were going to have to train everyone in its use. And we developed that kind of training first there. Schools were obviously exactly the same. And this is where both Alan and Ben have been just absolutely priceless, because that's the type of training they taught. Now all they do is they just add this section in where it used to be, well, okay, it looks like you're gonna have to fight. It's the last resort. Do whatever you have to do. It's planned improvisation. Here are some good ideas. And now before that, they can say, okay, that's what Reflex Protect is for. It's for that moment. Here's how you're going to use it. Here's how to, be super aware. And they do all of that kind of training. And so now, not only can we go into a place physically and do that, we can also do it online. We can train up trainers in your local facility if you're 1,000 miles away. And we don't have to even come in to do it. It's great to have the in-person stuff, but we don't have to do that. So yes, it's a whole division, and it's a very growing part of our organization.
Great, thank you. The next question comes about the law enforcement market. Anil asks, in the UK, most law enforcement officers do not carry firearms. Is there a plan to pitch Reflex Protect to international law enforcement agencies?
Okay, I'm always parsing things because I'm a lawyer. I can't say there's a plan. I think that would be overstating it. There has been interest from Japan, from Spain, from Brazil, and we have talked to some people in the UK as well who are like, this would be perfect for Europe, or this would be perfect for Japan, because our people aren't armed at all, and having something that actually they could use against a criminal who has a gun would be tremendous. So yes, I think there is a huge international law enforcement market for this, and it is definitely something that we will pursue. Our experience so far, however, has been that pursuit has not necessarily been necessary, and sometimes it's even been a waste of time. That it's actually when people come to us and say, we know what it is you have, and you may not even know we need it, but we know we need it. That's when things tend to move a lot more quickly. So we are focused on North America right now, but without question, we will move to international sales and are very excited about the opportunities out there.
I will add that we have taken the first steps to begin to work with our distribution partner to make sure that we can ship internationally.
That's
so
right.
Going through the process to make sure, because we are designated as a hazmat material, that we're taking the first steps to make sure that we can ship.
That's right, so that we're ready when the time comes. And actually, there's one other thing I should mention. The one product we have that is not a hazmat, of course, is Reflex Remove. And they have tear gas and pepper gas or pepper spray everywhere around the world, where, that's, in fact, you see it far more commonly used elsewhere than in the United States. And we are pursuing opportunities to begin to provide them with Reflex Remove, because, anybody that's covered in pepper spray or tear gas, they don't care how they got it on them, they just want it off, and we can get it off them faster and better than anybody else. So I expect that to be sooner rather than later a very large additional revenue source.
Thank you. Joe, the next question is about retail. Are you currently in any retail locations? And if not, what's the plan to go to retail for the future?
Yes, we are in retail locations. Evan is specifically actually working the retail and individual sales side of things. And we're not looking at just stores, although that's where it started, is some pharmacies and even some gun stores in various places. But we're also looking just to distributors that would distribute to various stores. In fact, one of our investors, and I don't know, is Patrick on today? I got a lovely email from one of our Republic investors saying, hey, I can put you in touch with some people from a very major distributor. And that's kind of how these things have started to happen. We have had several conversations with folks that place products in Sam's Club and some other places. And this is something, again, that was sort of intended to go at a given pace, but it is increasing very rapidly as word of our brand gets out. So yes, we will be. And in fact, I've got, we just started putting together our first packaging so that we can actually hang it up. And we are moving forward with that process as well right now. So it's not something that like, oh, we plan to do it in the future. We're actually taking steps towards it right now, and expect that we will be in quite a number of retail locations. Certainly by the fourth quarter, we'll be in a lot more than we are now. And by this time next year, we hope to have a broad retail presence.
Great, thank you. The next question comes from Manuel. He asks, will investors be able to follow the company's financial after the Republic campaign is over? So follow us after the campaign is over.
Absolutely. There's two ways that happens. One is that we are required to do an annual report and with the SEC. So we'll sort of all of the things that you saw there with your Form C over on the right-hand side of the screen and all the financials and things, we have to recreate that every year for all of our investors and for Republic and post it. So you'll have access to one that's specific for Republic, as well as then we also have to, this is the closest thing to an IPO I've seen, actually, because it kind of is a public offering, right? It's just a crowd-funded, narrow public offering with some limits to keep people from getting cheated, but we still have to jump through a lot of hoops and do a lot of disclosures and file a lot of reports. So yes, we will be filing those reports, and then we will publish them on our own website as well. We would have done that anyway, but it's actually legally required. So yeah, you will be very well informed about the finances of the company for as long as you either are a participant in the Republic single purpose entity or once your stock gets transferred into actual stock in the company.
Thank you. The next question also has to do with the campaign coming to a close. in that, will there be additional limited time perks as you near the end to perhaps entice more investors to pull the trigger on investing?
I keep hearing this is okay. Clearly, we have to do something. This is not the first time I've heard this question. And yes, the perks. One of the things about the perks, it's a little tricky, is changing them. We can add to them, but if you really change them, it becomes a material change, and then I have to file another Form C with the SEC and things like that. But I think we could add some things. So, I mean, and we'd love to hear your suggestions. I've heard a couple. I think what a lot of people are interested in is having something other than just a discount, because I thought a discount, well, you can pick what you want. But I have heard other people say I kind of wanted something special. They liked the limited perk where it was interactive, but some people didn't want to interact. They just wanted something. So I'm looking right now at, this is one of our very, very first products. It's a healthcare. Back when we actually had healthcare on the label, because we thought we would make a healthcare version and then maybe we'd make a school version. In fact, we did make a school version. And the school said, we don't want that. We want the healthcare version. And we're like, well, but this is for schools and you're a school. And they're like, yeah, we want the healthcare version. We think if it's good enough for healthcare, it's good enough for us. So we actually stopped making specific ones because everybody wanted healthcare. But these are, we haven't made these in a long time, and we'll never make them again. Maybe what we could do is we could say, and this was another idea I had. Now I've got two ideas coming together. If this turns out to be stupid, Libby, stop me. But what I'd love to do is empower people to empower other people. So let's say from now until, we'll pick a date, maybe a week before the end of the campaign. What if you either add $500 to your investment, or and then write in the comment section, hopefully make a nice comment about how you love the company, because those are really helpful, and we want more of those. That's something I forgot to say. Please do that. But also, if you have somebody else that you convince to come look at it and they invest $500 and they mention you, then we'll send you, I can autograph it or something to make it clear that it's special keepsake and it's original packaging and things like that. We'll send you one of the original ones with a letter of authentication or something like that. I don't know how you do that, but Ben is actually kind of a collector of special Star Wars things, so he'll tell me how to do it. Was it okay that I just told everybody that, Ben? Anyway, but we'll do something cool like that. Or, and maybe that's not going to be it, but I can imagine we could do something like that. That's that you have a part of the history of the company. So let's say that we'll do that starting now. We'll get out some kind of an update here really soon that explains that to people. And then, just keep giving us feedback. We'd love to do more perks. We'd love to have more interactivity. I feel like I'm talking to a whole bunch of investors right now, and I am quite a few. I see there are quite a few. This is great. This is really what we want to be able to do. And if there's a way that we can enable further communication between us and the folks that believe in our mission and empower you and get you excited about what we're doing, more than just handing us money, but actually doing other things, that's really what I think is what's valuable about crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding, and what's exciting about it.
Thanks, Joe. We would love to have your comments on things that you would like to see, in addition to reasons why you decided to invest or reasons why you're thinking about investing in the company. Does anyone else have any other questions? If you do, please put them in the chat, but we have come to the end of the questions thus far.
Okay. We'll give everybody a second. There's something that you hoped somebody else would ask. If not, it is Friday, and I don't have to.
It is Friday.
It is Friday.
Yes.
Are we seeing anything else, Libby?
I don't think so.
Well, I'm very grateful for those of you who came. For those of you who are watching this on recording, thank you very much for taking the time. We really appreciate those of you who have followed us on Republic. It's a great platform for us. It's a great way for us to raise funds from people who care about our mission. And we're just incredibly excited about what's happening right now and how that's changed the investment that you might have been considering even 3 months ago. Is a whole new ball of wax right now. So thank you for your time, and everybody have a great weekend. Maybe we'll try to do one more of these before the end as well. Let us know your feedback on it. Thanks, and signing off.